Hello and welcome to the Reviews Brothers. Sadly, outside of the arcades, the light gun genre is a bit of a dying art, which is a real shame as it's easily one of my favourites. Pointing a real plastic gun at enemies and pulling the trigger always feels good, and I really can't believe it's not a genre that big developers haven't tried to properly accommodate. Arguably, the last good examples of it can be found on the Wii, at least at home, thanks to the motion controls being able to mimic the guns kinda well. And yes, I know there's a few on the PS3 as well, but we're not looking at that console today. What we are looking at though are the light gun games that came out for the Wii, Nintendo's Waggle monster. Do they hold up today, or should you shake your stick elsewhere? Now, how about I shut up, you press that subscribe button, and we take a look at some games. Let's start with House of the Dead 2 and 3 Returns. This is a great combo pack that includes both House of the Dead 2 and 3 in one sexy package. I am still bitter that they didn't include the first game, as that is my ultimate favourite in the series, but I'm sure I'll get over it. So yes, they are light gun rail shooters where you play as agents from the AMS, a government agency who spend all their budget on fancy suits and guns with infinite ammo, and none of their budget on voice acting. You have to take down the evil mad scientist Curian. He's being a bastard and making zombies in his evil lab and using them to cause havoc. That means that you and your partner need to make your way down some predetermined paths while shooting anything you see. Well, not the humans that are begging for your help, of course. The game takes you through the streets of a very European-looking town, through some sewers, on a boat ride, and eventually to the evil headquarters of Curian himself, where more deadly monsters are waiting for you. Now, this is a light gun game, so the gameplay is incredibly simple. Just point at the enemies and pull the trigger. But the enemies and bosses here are just so good that it really is satisfying to do. There's not a massive selection of zombies, but there is enough, and they take location damage, so when you shoot them they will fall apart in a very satisfying way. There is only one weapon in the game, which is your pistol. You've got a few shots per clip, and then to reload, you just point outside of the screen. It's easy and fun to do. The game's visuals haven't been updated much since the arcade, or more likely the Dreamcast version, which I assume this is based on, but it still looks great thanks to the design on everything, and it's so fun to just blast your way through everything you see. There are civilians you will need to save. If you shoot them, you lose a life. Often if you save them, then they'll give you a life. The bosses are huge and have specific weak spots. You can tell they're coin munchers in the arcade though, with some of their attacks being more questionable than the voice acting here. But still, I love this game and honestly I could play it every day. Then there's House of the Dead 3. This is actually a prequel in terms of story. It's basically the same, Curian's a dick, go shoot his monsters. And of course the gameplay is basically the same as well. You make your way through various environments that are packed with zombies, and again they all look fantastic and the way they fall apart is just brilliant. This time round there is a lot more variety in the routes you can take, with you getting an option on the path on most levels, and even at various points throughout some of them. That makes the replay value pretty good here and gives you even more reasons to play again, not that you'll need it. You get a shotgun for a weapon this time instead of a pistol. Now, honestly, that doesn't actually make a difference to the gameplay at all here. It was only really a thing in the arcade where you had a big plastic one to pump and reload, rather than a pistol. Here, it just works the same as the way the pistol does in the other game. You just point outside the screen to reload, but there's nothing wrong with that. Something added to both games is an original mode. In this mode, you can find various items in the destructible boxes and barrels in that level. These let you equip perks like having larger clips, more health, 2 times damage, and that sort of thing. It's a nice little bonus and a good mode to play through. Also, the more you play the game, the more credits you unlock, until eventually you have unlimited, which is a nice touch and you'll be able to see it all the way through. Overall though, this is just a brilliant package. It's super cheap these days and definitely a must-have for any Wii owner. And of course, it's got a fantastic 2-player co-op as well. Let's go from zombies to dinosaurs now with Dino Strike. Not to be confused with Combat of Giants Dinosaur Strike, which is a completely different game. Dino Strike is in fact an on-rails light gun shooter, and a budget one at that. Yeah, there is a pointless story here where you're on a boat that crashes into a mysterious island while you're on a rescue mission, and you'll never guess what? That's right, there's dinosaurs. Scary stuff. You just have to explore the island, starting on the outer beaches before making your way through the jungles, down some river rapids, into a volcano, out through an ancient town, and so on. The levels are actually pretty nice and varied. Each one introduces 1 or 2 new enemies as well, which is nice. The main things you'll be fighting are velociraptors, because of course that's a thing now. There's hundreds of the buggers everywhere, and they'll jump out of just about anywhere to mess you up. Thankfully, they're not very tough, only taking a few shots to put down. Soon you'll meet the Dilophosaurus, you know, the one that spits the goo from Jurassic Park. These are my favourite dinosaurs in case you're wondering, closely followed by the Styracosaurus. As you go on, you'll fight Ankylosaurus, pterodactyls, and of course a massive T-Rex. To take the bastards down, you have a pistol with unlimited ammo. This has a medium fire rate and is of course the weakest of the weapons that you can get, but I mean infinite ammo is a pretty good trade-off. As you explore though, basically on each level, you will find a new weapon. You get a shotgun which is slow to fire but does massive damage. There is a machine gun that has rapid fire and is quite weak, but the rate of fire really makes up for that. It's probably my favourite weapon to use. And then finally there's a crossbow that fires explosive ammo. Again, this is slow to fire and has to travel to get to the enemies, but does massive damage if you get a direct hit. And you can also fire at the ground in front of enemies to take a few out in just one shot. Anything that isn't the pistol uses ammo which is found in crates in levels, just shoot them to pick it up. And you can switch between guns that you have whenever you want, and you reload by pressing the A button. You'll also find a few health kits in the levels, which is handy, though the game isn't particularly tough and you can play through it in about an hour, maybe even less. If you're playing 2-player, like I was, you both share the same health, though that never caused any issues. You'll also find eggs in levels. Shoot these and you'll get an extra continue. Graphically, the game looks fine. It's a budget game and that shows. It's all slightly cartoony, but the animation is decent enough. It's just a bit basic. Some of the later levels do look pretty cool though. This is one of those games that's fun to play through, though it's unlikely to be one that you go back through regularly, thanks to a lack of any unlockable stuff and no alternative routes or anything like that. But still, it's fun for what it is. Next up is Ghost Squad, another light gun shooter from Sega that started out in the arcades, and I used to play this at my local bowling alley quite often, so when it came to the Wii, I had to get it immediately. And I'm glad I did, as I'd say this is one of my favourites. You play as a member of Ghost Squad, a crack team of tough nuts who are sent on a whopping 3 missions in order to take down various bad guys. At the start of the game, you can customise your character and create a profile. This is an important thing which I'll get to in a bit. Then you choose from the 3 missions, which doesn't sound like a lot, and honestly it's not. But the missions are all unique and fun to play through, and actually quite long compared to what you'd probably think. The first one sees you infiltrating a lovely log cabin where a dictator has chosen to take residence and of course hostages. You burst in, take down his minions, and throughout the stage have a number of different routes to take, and it's fun to unlock them all. The game actually keeps a record of the routes that you take on each playthrough, and you'll unlock new ones by doing various combinations. Every now and then you're also given new objectives. For example, in this first mission, you'll need to rescue hostages, which isn't just a case of killing everyone else, you actually have to put your cursor over them and press the A button. This makes things more tense, as you are quite likely to shoot a fair few of them in the face the first few times you play. Then there's a sniper section, which is really fun. You've got a tiny aiming reticle for this, and you've got to reload after each shot, but it's fun to use. And then later, you get to use a rocket launcher, but you have to track your target to lock on before you can fire. It's a simple way to mix up the gameplay, and it works. The second mission is set on Air Force One, where you have to rescue the President, and it's a similar setup. You make your way through the on-rails paths, choosing a few routes on the way, and the level is a lot shorter, but still fun to play through. And at the end, the boss fight can be tricky as you only get one shot to kill the boss, and you've got to shoot him in the head, but it is really satisfying when you pull it off. The third mission is you and the team infiltrating a jungle base full of bastards. Yep, the gameplay is the same, you make your way through the jungle and various huts, but again you're given a bunch of different routes you can take, which makes the replay value really good here. You also have sections where you have to do some sniping again, as well as defusing some bombs. Then the final boss sees you taking control of a massive machine gun and having to use the grenades. It's great fun. And you know how I said your profile is important? Well, that's because you earn XP as you play, and as you level up you'll earn new bits of kit that you can use on subsequent playthroughs. You'll unlock new skins and costumes for your character, but these don't really make a difference. Better than that though, you get access to a bunch of new weapons. Completing side missions, getting headshots and killing enemies quickly when they appear all give you bonus XP. Your standard weapon is a machine gun, and you can switch this between single shot, 3-round burst, which is my favourite, or automatic, which does also use ammo and is not unlimited. But as you go through the game, you'll unlock a variety of pistols, rifles, machine guns, shotguns, and even a rocket launcher. All of these have their own stats in terms of accuracy, power, rate of fire, clip size, and so on. And it's really fun to try them all out and see which one is your favourite. And it makes you want to replay the levels over and over so you can get all the weapons. There's even various game modes to choose from. You can unlock one that makes everyone ninjas, and instead of using guns, you're throwing ninja stars. And if you're really good, you can unlock the water fight mode, which turns all of the enemies into bikini-clad women, and you're shooting everyone with a water pistol. Classic 2000s. So yeah, there's a lot of content here, and plenty of reasons to go back and play it over and over again. If you've got friends, they can create their own profiles there as well, and they'll be saved separately, so they'll have to unlock everything for themselves. It all looks decent enough as well, with a very 2000s arcade look, and it runs very smoothly. This one is highly recommended. Time to make you shit yourself now with Dead Space Extraction, a nice companion piece to the awesome horror series on the big boy consoles. Obviously, as it's here, instead of the survival horror experience we got on the Xbox 360 and PS3, instead we have a first-person rail shooter. But you know what? It works really well. The story is split into a few sections, and you actually take control of a few different characters throughout the game. You start off as part of a team that are extracting the marker from the first game, which is cool. The mission takes place before all the monsters have appeared, but does happen at the point where the marker is making people go crazy and attacking one another. Later, you take control of a security bloke, and that's when the shit all hits the fan. Humans are killing each other, monsters are appearing, and abominations that need dismembering are all over the place. It's great, and you even get to check out the Ishimura ship from the main series. The game really stands out from the other light gun rail shooters as it's much more cinematic and story driven, so be aware that while the game does have a whole lot of action and shooting, there's also long sections where you're basically just watching the story play out, and if you don't care about the story, you might even find yourself getting a little bit restless and bored at times while you wait for things to shoot. Being set in the Dead Space universe, you have access to a few different weapons. You've got a rivet gun, which is your one that has unlimited ammo. It's got a pretty slow rate of fire and is quite weak. All weapons have a secondary function which you use by tilting the Wii Remote on its side, which is pretty cool. This one lets you fire charged shots, and as it's a tool, not actually a weapon, there's times in the levels where you need to use it for its intended purpose, and you'll actually need to do some riveting, to either open or close various doors or vents, usually when monsters are trying to eat your ass. As you progress through the game, you get a plasma cutter, which is the fan favourite from the series, and it's bloody good here as well, and perfect for dismembering idiots. Then there's a plasma gun, which is your rapid fire, a pistol, and one that shoots exploding things, and so on. These all use ammo, and you can switch between them at any point. Another Dead Space staple is your grav beam thing. You have to use this to grab things from far away and bring them to you. You'll want to grab any ammo you find laying around, as well as the green boxes that are everywhere. These contain ammo and health packs, and you can use them to throw at enemies to stun them for a bit as well. In fact, there's also a few random things in the environment you can pick up and throw at enemies to save ammo, but not as many as I would have thought, and I would have liked a few more. And the last thing from the series is your stasis. You've got a stasis shot that you can use, which will slow whatever you hit with it down. So you might need to use it to fire a fast moving fan so you can slow it down and get past, or a door that won't stay open, or most of the time what you'll be using it on are the enemies to freeze them in their tracks for a few seconds so you can chop them up into nice pieces. Oh, and if you're not familiar with the series, the main thing with the monsters here is that the only way to make sure they stay dead is to cut off their limbs, so it is important to chop them into small chunks. The atmosphere in the game is really great, with some really grim imagery, especially when people are going crazy and hurting one another. The graphics are excellent as well, probably some of the best I've seen on the Wii. The environments all look really good, and the character models and enemies are excellent. Not as good as the other systems of course, but for the Wii, it is very good. The controls are decent. You will need the nunchuck to play this one, and you can use it to change weapon, and you also need to swing the nunchuck to use your mining axe, which is your melee weapon. This can destroy certain obstacles and also does a little damage to enemies, though don't rely on it, you won't last long if you do. Overall, this really is an excellent game that does a great job of taking a franchise in a different direction. It was also released on the PS3, and I do actually own that version, but I haven't played it yet. In fact, this was the first time I played the Wii version as well. I've had it for years. But yeah, if you do like horror, or the Dead Space series in general, then this isn't just a quick cash grab, it's a well-made rail shooter that is well worth your time.
Go! Nate! Come on!
Back to a classic Sega arcade game now for the double pack that includes Gunblade and its sequel, LA Machine Guns, in one convenient package. This is another pair of games that I used to play down my local Sega World in Southampton before it closed down. Sad times, I used to love it there. Anyway, this is a cool double pack of games. The first, Gunblade, sees you take control of a helicopter machine gunner. You won't believe it, but evil robot bastard terrorists are wreaking havoc all over the place, so you have to go to various locations in a few cities in order to take them down. Gameplay here is very simple. The helicopter flies on a predetermined route, or route if you're that way inclined. You just need to point your Wii remote at the bad guys and shoot them until they explode. But boy is it frantic. I haven't played this for a while and I'd forgotten how fast paced it is. The helicopter moves around super fast and twists and turns all the time. Keeping track of everything, especially when you're as old as me, can be a problem at times. Thankfully you do have unlimited ammo and you never have to reload. You just hold the button down and often you don't even have to kill all the enemies on screen, and all you'll miss out on are points. Though there are actually times where you will hover in one place until everyone is dead in an area. These are actually kind of a nice break. Enemies come in a few varieties, though to be honest it's all so fast and frantic that you're usually too far away and don't really notice. But what you get are a bunch of different robots, as well as a few tanks and things that you'll need to blow up. What's nice is that the enemies all fire rockets at you, which can be shot down, so as long as you're paying attention, you won't have too much trouble with the game and won't take much damage. You only get 3 lives, but you do have unlimited continues, which does take away any real challenge here, and the game can be played through in about 20 minutes. But to be honest, that's about the perfect length, as it's just before things start getting too stale. Graphically, it's very 90s 3D, which makes sense as that's when it was originally released. But I actually really like these simple flat shaded polygons. There's something really appealing about it to me. I did find that I had to turn the sound down here though, because it's just a constant drone of bullet shots and pings, and no one needs that. The second game on the disc, LA Machine Guns, is the sequel, and in terms of story and everything else, it's basically identical. In fact, the game is basically identical in every way, apart from the level layouts and graphics, which have had a bit of an upgrade. So there's still robots all over the place, and you are a machine gunner. You've got 4 levels here to choose from, each one in a different city. So you go out with your pilot, who has once again had way too many cans of Monster, and you fly around at breakneck speeds, taking the robot bastards down. There really isn't a whole lot more to say about this one, as everything I've said about the first one applies here as well. Something I didn't mention are the bosses, which in both games are usually pretty big mechs or vehicles. These are always fun to fight. They've got weak points that do massive damage, so you'll want to look out for those. Something else I really like here is the fact that the robots fall apart as you're shooting them, so often they start looking almost human, but by the time you're done with them, they'll look more like the Terminator, but only for the half a second or so that they're on screen. Still, it's a nice touch. I did notice that there was a bit of slowdown in this game, which I was a bit surprised at, although I can't say I'm too surprised with all the nonsense that's constantly going out throughout the levels. Much like the first one, this is still a fun game, but not really one I'm in a rush to go back and play. There's no extras or bonuses, it's just a basic port. But it's nice to be able to play through them to the end, something I never managed to do in the arcades. So if you find it for cheap, pick it up, but otherwise maybe it's one you can overlook. And finally for today, here is Target Terror, another arcade game that was brought home to the Wii, and oh boy is this one a doozy. The game's title basically tells you everything you need to know. There's terrorists, so you need to go and kill them. This game immediately reminded me of the classics Area 51 and Maximum Force, as you go through some 3D pre-rendered environments that include an airport, Golden Gate Bridge, and of course a nuclear plant. Each of the environments has 3 levels to choose within it, so basically there's 9 levels in total to play through, plus some hidden bonus ones. Enemies will constantly jump out at you from behind random bits of cover, and you need to just point your Wii remote on them and pull the trigger. Simple. It's tough though, as you often have 5 or 6 enemies popping up at a time, and it's never clear which one is going to shoot you. As far as I can tell, if an enemy is on screen for a certain amount of time, then you'll take damage, so it's just a case of killing them as quickly as possible, preferably in the order that they've appeared. And as you can see, the variety of enemies is fantastic. They are all digitized sprites of real people, and I bloody love them. You get random people in hoodies and jeans, people dressed as soldiers, people dressed in a jacket and trousers, people in tracksuits, women in bondage gear. It's all here, and it's so bad it's good. I mean, the actual digitization is decent enough, it's just that these games never really look good. Some enemies appear really close to you, and rather than shooting, they attack with melee weapons. or my favourite is the suicide bomber with a jacket. He's hilarious. Actually, having said that, my personal favourite is the half-naked woman who pops up in front of you every now and then and does a really bad ninja combo. She's great. What a day in the office that must have been for her. There's plenty of blood and guts when you shoot people here, which is good. You have a pistol with unlimited ammo of course, but you can shoot a lot of the environment to uncover more weapons. You get machine guns, shotguns, grenade launcher, laser rifles, freeze guns and more. These all use ammo though, so when you run out, it's back to the pistol for you, but that's okay. You also get a random set of mini-games. For example, we'd shot enough windows in a level and were taken to a stage on a golf course where we had to shoot golf balls into golf carts. This is all for points, and the game really doesn't ever take itself seriously. Before levels start, you see a news briefing, which is also so bad it's good, where a poorly acted newscast is shown, where they've clearly just used the mic built into the camera to record the sound. They really spared no expense. You also have to look out for civilians in levels, as they'll pop up all over the place, usually right in the way, and if you shoot them, you lose health. You do have limited credits here, so be careful, but honestly I didn't really understand how it worked. Sometimes I only had 5 or so, but other times I had more than 30. I hadn't changed anything in the options, and I wasn't using cheats, so who knows what was going on. Ah well. So yeah, overall, this is a game that I kind of hate to love. I really wouldn't say it's a good game. Watching the footage, it looks awful. But it's got such a strange charm to it. The actual controls here are fine and they actually work perfectly. The shooting is spot on. It's just that the game has such a weird feel to it. It would have been right at home in the mid-90s, but somehow this is a game from 2004. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this game is fantastic though. I really couldn't stop playing it, and even writing this, I kind of want to go back and try it again. Basically, it's a crappy B-movie, but one of those ones that you love and can't wait to show all your friends. So there you go, a selection of We Like Gun games. Which one is your favourite? I love this genre and there's plenty more on the system, so I would like to take it some more in the future. As always, let me know in the comments below. And yes, that one you're going to mention, I deliberately left it out to include in the next part. You know which one I mean. I'd like to thank my sexy patron. Your support is really appreciated and it actually helped me buy some of these games. So if you would like to support me and get access to even more bonus content, check out the description below. On screen now you can see where you can follow me, so why not do so? I've got plenty of great content for everyone to enjoy. And now all that's left for me to say is thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.